His hands were rough from the oar, yet when they found my skin that night, they felt softer than silk. I still remember it, my body pressed against the cool wood of the canoe, the lake calm but my heart wild, as if the waves inside me had broken free. His lips hovered so close to mine, his breath hot against my cheek, and for a moment, the world felt as if it belonged only to us. I know you're already leaning in, wondering what happened next. But before I pour this secret out completely, let me say this: make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it, because the story I'm about to confess is one most women would never dare to tell. This is my truth, my adventure, and my sin. It all began that summer when my husband and I were invited to a lake house in Michigan. A simple trip, surrounded by family, friends, and nature. At least, that was what it was supposed to be. But then he was there. The man who would end up shaking the calmness of my married life, stirring the stillness of my waters. He wasn't a stranger. He was someone I'd seen before, a friend of a friend, tall and strong, his skin sun-kissed, his eyes deep as the lake we floated on. The kind of man who didn't just look at you, he looked through you, peeling away layers you thought you'd hidden forever. The first time he smiled at me, it felt harmless. The first time his hand brushed against mine as we steadied the canoe, I told myself it was nothing. But the way my body reacted, the way I ached at the touch, was something I could no longer ignore. That evening, when the sun dipped low and painted the water gold, we found ourselves alone. My husband had gone inside with the others, distracted by drinks and chatter. He offered me another canoe ride, and though I should have said no, I said yes. The air smelled of pine and water, the silence broken only by the dip of his paddle. I sat across from him, my dress brushing my thighs, his gaze fixed too often on me. He rowed slowly, deliberately, as if dragging out the moments between us. "You look nervous," he said, his voice low, almost teasing. "I'm not," I lied, though my hands trembled slightly in my lap. He smirked, dipping the paddle deeper into the water. "You're married. That's the only thing keeping you from looking me straight in the eyes." I wanted to deny it, but he was right. Something about him made me both want to flee and to drown in his presence. When he steadied the canoe and leaned closer, his paddle resting across his knees, his eyes burned into me. "You feel it too, don't you?" I swallowed hard. My lips parted, but no words came out. The silence between us said everything. And then, his hand touched mine again. Firm this time. Possessive. I felt the current of desire pulling me in, even though my mind screamed to resist. That was the first wave. The first time I realized I was standing at the edge of something destructive, yet irresistible. I'll take you deeper into what followed, into how that canoe ride became the beginning of a storm I never escaped. But I want you here with me for every confession, every dangerous detail. So, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who craves the kind of stories that make their heart race. Because this is only the beginning. And trust me, the waves only get wilder from here. The night after that canoe ride, I barely slept. I lay beside my husband, his steady snore filling the room, and stared at the ceiling. My body was still trembling, not from fear, but from the memory of his hand gripping mine, his words still echoing. "You feel it too, don't you?" I hated how true it was. I hated that the thought of him made me ache in places my husband hadn't reached in months. And yet, I also loved it. It was dangerous, intoxicating, like a storm cloud hanging just above my head, ready to break. The next morning, the lake glistened under the sun, calm as though mocking the chaos inside me. I told myself to stay away from him, to keep distance, but when he appeared shirtless on the dock, his chest bronzed, water dripping from his skin, my knees nearly gave way. He smirked when our eyes met. That smirk that told me he knew exactly what he was doing to me. Later, when everyone else was busy inside the cabin, he came to me. I was sitting on the porch swing, pretending to read a book, when his shadow blocked the sunlight. "You're still running from me," he said, his voice low. "I'm not," I whispered, though my throat was dry. "Then look at me." And I did. My eyes met his, and it was like drowning, like his gaze itself was a paddle cutting through my defenses. Without warning, he stepped closer, leaning one hand on the swing behind me. His body heat swallowed me whole, his scent, wood, lake, and something purely male, wrapped around me like a net I couldn't escape. "You're going to break," he murmured, his lips brushing against my ear. "I can already feel it." My breath shuddered out, my chest rising against his. For a moment, I thought he would kiss me there, on that porch, under the open eye of daylight. But he didn't. He pulled back, smirking again, as though knowing the torment was worse than the act itself. That evening, it happened. Dinner ended. Laughter and music drifted from the cabin. I stepped outside for air, telling myself it was harmless, telling myself it was just to breathe. But he was already waiting, leaning against the canoe tied to the dock, moonlight painting him in silver. "Going for a ride?" he asked softly. I hesitated. My heart raced. Someone will see. No one will. They're too busy with their drinks. And that was all it took. Minutes later, I was back in the canoe with him, the water carrying us away from the safety of shore. The silence between us was heavy, charged. The only sound was the dip of his paddle, slow and deliberate. Finally, he let it rest across the canoe and leaned toward me. I froze when his hand touched my face. His thumb traced my lower lip. My breath caught. "Say no if you don't want this," he whispered. I didn't say no. I couldn't. The moment his lips touched mine, I shattered. His kiss was fire, hungry, devouring, nothing like the careful, practiced kisses of my husband. His tongue slid against mine, tasting me, claiming me. My hands betrayed me, clutching his shoulder.
Pulling him closer. The canoe rocked beneath us, water lapping at the sides, but I didn't care if we both drowned right there. When he pulled away, his forehead pressed against mine, we were both gasping. "This is just the beginning," he murmured, his hand slipping down to grip my thigh. And God help me, I wanted more. I know your heart is racing, the way mine was on that lake. If it is, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it, because I promise, the storm of this affair is only just rising. This was the second wave, the kiss that tipped me over. What followed, was destruction I willingly swam into.
That kiss haunted me. For days, it replayed in my mind, burning hotter each time. The taste of him. The way his hand gripped my thigh like he was staking claim. The way I didn't resist. I told myself to stop, to walk away before it went too far. But telling yourself one thing and keeping your body from betraying you are two different battles. And mine? I lost the moment he appeared again. It was late one evening. My husband had dozed off on the couch after too many beers. The others were still laughing inside. I stepped outside for fresh air, though deep down I knew what I was hoping for. And there he was, waiting, like he'd been reading my mind all along. "You came," he said. "I shouldn't have," I whispered. "But you did." The way he looked at me, it wasn't boyish charm. It was raw, untamed hunger, like I was prey and he was the predator who'd finally cornered me. Before I could breathe, he had me against the wooden railing of the porch, his mouth crashing into mine again. This kiss wasn't patient, wasn't teasing. It was rough, meaty, like weeks of restraint snapping in one heartbeat. I gasped when his hand slid beneath my shirt, fingers brushing my skin. My body jolted alive, a spark of heat rushing through me. "Do you know what you do to me?" he growled against my lips. I shook my head, lost in the fire. "You undo me. Every damn time I see you." And then I was lost. His lips trailed down my neck, sucking, biting, leaving heat wherever they touched. My fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, my chest rising against his. I should have stopped him. God knows I should have. But when his hand slipped lower, gripping me in a way that made my knees nearly buckle, I moaned out loud, louder than I meant to. Shoo, he whispered, his mouth still pressed to my skin. Do you want them to hear? I bit my lip, my body trembling with both fear and thrill. The risk of it, the chance of being caught, made it even more intoxicating. He leaned back, eyes blazing in the moonlight. Say it, he demanded. Say what? Say you want me. My throat was dry, my chest heaving, but the truth slipped out before I could bury it. I want you. That was all he needed. In one swift motion, he lifted me onto the railing, his body pressing firmly into mine. The world blurred, the sound of laughter inside the cabin, the chirp of crickets, even the steady ripple of the lake. There was only him. Only us. His hands roamed, his lips claimed, his breath mingled with mine. Every stroke of his tongue, every squeeze of his grip, felt like waves crashing inside me. I wasn't just being touched, I was being consumed. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. I know you're caught in this storm with me. If you are, don't just watch, hit the like button, share this story, and subscribe for more of these confessions. Because what happened next was even riskier, even more destructive. This was no longer just a kiss. This was an affair in motion. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt, not yet. But because of the ache that lingered in my body, the craving that gnawed at me after what he started on the porch. He left me hanging, burning, trembling for more. The next morning, I told myself it had to stop. I repeated it like a mantra. You're married. You're a wife. You're a mother. But when he caught my eye at breakfast, smirking like he could still taste me on his lips, I knew I was already his. Later that afternoon, it happened. Everyone had gone hiking, my husband included. I stayed behind, claiming a headache. He must have been waiting for that moment because minutes later, he slipped into the cabin. You knew I'd come, he said. His voice was low, dangerous. I shouldn't let you, I whispered. But you will. That was the truth. My body betrayed me again. He closed the distance in 3 strides, his mouth crushing mine, his hands pulling me against him like he'd been starving for me all along. My legs wrapped around his waist without thought, my back pressed against the wall. It was reckless. Shameless. The kind of thing you read about in books but never think will happen to you, until it does. God, you're so warm, he groaned as his lips trailed down my neck, his hands slipping beneath my clothes, peeling away the layers I once thought of as protection. I wanted to tell him to stop. I wanted to scream no. But instead, a soft moan escaped me, betraying everything I was supposed to stand for. And then, I let him have me. Right there, in that wooden cabin, while my husband was somewhere in the woods, I gave myself to another man. It was raw. It was wild. It was destructive. His every thrust was like a paddle in my ocean, stirring waves that drowned me in ecstasy and shame all at once. Say you're mine, he demanded, his grip tight on my hips. I can't. You already are, he cut in, his lips devouring mine before I could speak another word. The world disappeared. There was no husband. No vows. No family waiting for me back home. There was only his fire, and the way he consumed me whole. By the time it was over, my body was spent, trembling, wrecked. My soul, though, carried the weight of what I had just done. And yet, when he kissed me softly after, brushing his lips against mine like a promise, I knew I wasn't finished. I wanted more. And if you're still with me, caught up in my storm, don't forget, like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Because what comes next is where destruction meets obsession. The canoe has capsized, and I can't swim back to shore. When the sun went down that evening, the cabin felt smaller, darker, heavier with the secret I now carried in my skin. I sat on the porch with a blanket wrapped around me, staring at the stars while my husband laughed somewhere inside with the others. He had no idea. None. And that made it worse, because every time I looked at him, guilt should have crushed me. But instead, I thought of the other man. His touch. His hunger. His reckless, destructive rhythm that had shattered every boundary I once thought unbreakable. I wasn't the same woman anymore. The truth? I didn't even miss who I used to be. The next days were a blur of stolen glances, secret brushes of hands, and quiet signals across crowded rooms. He'd whisper something innocent, but his eyes would devour me, reminding me of what we'd done, and what we'd do again if given the chance. And yes, we did. More than once. On the deck late at night. In the kitchen when everyone was asleep. Even in the back seat of his car, parked under the trees while my husband thought I was getting fresh air. It was dangerous. Addictive. The kind of danger that makes you feel more alive than you've ever felt. But deep down, I knew this couldn't last. Because every time he touched me, every time he stirred waves in my ocean with his paddle, I was sinking further away from the woman I was supposed to be. And yet, I didn't stop. I couldn't. One night, after he left me trembling and ruined on the couch, he leaned close and whispered, "You'll never forget me. Even if this ends, you'll crave me forever." He was right. Even now, as I speak these words anonymously, hiding behind the safety of this screen, my body aches at the memory of him. My marriage still stands. My husband never knew. But in secret corners of my mind, I am still capsized, still drowning in that forbidden ocean. I tell myself I'll never do it again. That what happened was just a season of weakness. But then I close my eyes, and I feel his hands again. And I know. Some storms never really pass. Sparkles, if you've stayed with me until this point, thank you. My story is mine alone, but if you felt every wave of it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves a good forbidden confession. Because sometimes, what destroys us, is also what makes us feel most alive. Fire, that's the final chapter, tying lust, secrecy, and destruction into one unforgettable ending. Do you want me to now give you a romantic yet haunting conclusion summary, a condensed outro for video narration, that feels glamorous and enticing for subscribers? Kissmark, desire broke me, yet it also awakened me. His paddle tore my calm ocean apart, but in that wreckage, I discovered a forbidden kind of beauty, a lust that will forever haunt me. My nightmare, my ecstasy, my secret. Sparkles, if you felt every wave of my confession, don't just leave quietly, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with someone who craves romance wrapped in danger. Because here, every story is soaked in passion, and every secret is worth uncovering. Dizzy.